One of the more enigmatic sayings from Jesus is in Matthew 26:25 in talking to Judas. It's a very interesting phrase, and if you look at the Greek, you'll see why English translations struggle with it so much. We have to go up to verse 21 to set the stage for this question. And Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me." And they were sad and they began to say to one another, notice what they're saying, "Not I am Kyria." In other words, they're asking a question, "It is I," not expecting a negative answer, and the disciples call him Kyria. When you get down to the discussion with Judas, things are just a little bit different. So Judas, the one betraying him, so there's your participle. Judas, the one betraying him, answering, said, and he uses the same construction, "Not I am." It is not I, expecting a negative answer, but he doesn't call him Kyria, he calls him Rabbi. Okay, that's part of the clue. And he, meaning Jesus, says to him, now here's the enigmatic statement. You said, you said what? It's actually a very clever translation. The problem with the other translations is that they almost sound like Jesus is agreeing with Judas that it's not going to be him. But the NASB adds in this yourself. They can do it because the Greek has an explicit personal pronoun, which is going to be emphatic. You said, and so the yourself comes out of the su there. But the implication is that, well, you yourself had said that. I didn't say that. ESV, you have said so. It's very ambiguous. But again, it gives the impression that he's agreeing. NRSV, you have said so. The CSB, you have said it. Net Bible, you have said it yourself. So you can see they're all struggling with what to do with this phrase. There's a couple of parallel expressions that I'm not sure they really help that much, but Jesus before the high priest, down in verse 63, he calls on Jesus to make an oath, and he says, "Tell us if you're the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus said to him, "You said." It is as you have said. You have said so. You have said it. You can see the problems people are struggling with. The other expression is when Jesus is before Pilate. And Pilate's questioning him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus says, "You say," puts it in the present tense, but the same construction. So Jesus uses the same answer to Pilate and to the Sanhedrin and to Judas. Now, they don't all have to mean the same thing, but you can see the problem. I think part of what Jesus is thinking is that he wants to be somewhat enigmatic, especially with Judas. I think he wants to still let Judas know that he knows Judas is going to betray him, but there's still time to repent. I say that because it's enigmatic enough of a statement that the other disciples aren't going to understand it. But I think Judas did understand it. Because he said, "It's not going to be me, right?" And Jesus says, "Well, those are your words, not mine." That's the phrase that Craig Blomberg uses in his commentary. Well, those are your words, but they're not mine. So that's why it's important to understand that the same phrase doesn't have to have the same meaning elsewhere. Because here there's an implicit denial of the truth of what Judas is saying. But in the case of the Sanhedrin and Pilate, he's not disagreeing, he's agreeing. See, the phrase is sufficiently ambiguous that you really have to have context to decide what it means. Blomberg quotes Allen on this verse, and Allen writes, What was required was just what su epos expresses, an ambiguous affirmative, suggesting to the traitor himself the certainty that his treachery was known, to others, if they overheard it, a half uncertainty as to what was meant, and leaving opportunity for Judas of withdrawing from his course of treachery before its absolute and final exposure. This is one of those verses where you just can't translate the Greek and expect the readers to understand. But certainly, Judas would have understood that the me was incorrect, the meti, and that Jesus knew what was going to happen. And so it really should be translated something like Blomberg suggests. You said so. These are your words. Understood, but they're not mine. Isn't ambiguity fun?